my home state, Annetta, North Dakota, Marianne wrote to me, my husband has Parkinson's disease, so he takes a drug called Mirapex. We have Medicare Part D, but in September he ends up in the so-called donut hole. In 2008, when this happened, we paid $106 for his medication. It increased to $187 in October and November, $198 in December. Now in September 2009, the price was $286, a $180 increase in 1 year.
Will Senator yield for a question?
I'll be happy to yield.
Could I ask the senator? The senator I know is aware and has talked about this. How does the senator account for the fact that there is a nearly 9% increase in the cost of pharmaceutical drugs, while the consumer price index this year has gone down 1.3%? And this is probably the highest increase I understand in history or in most recent years in the cost of prescription drugs. What is the explanation between the divergence of those two lines?
Well, the explanation, I suppose, I mean, it's probably better addressed to the pharmaceutical industry. How and why do you increase these prices this way? My guess is they do it because they can. The fact is, the cost of living index is here. The inflation rate is the yellow line. The price of prescription drugs is the red line.
Would that have anything to do with anticipation of incoming reductions or reductions in increase in costs of pharmaceuticals?
Well, I would say to the senator from Arizona, my expectation is that the pharmaceutical industry has said, well, this is a time to increase these prices, and the most important element here is there's no restraint. No one has any capability of restraining them. The only way you would provide restraint on this is if you said to the American consumer, you know what? You don't have to buy it from these people at this price because it's sold in virtually every other country at half the price. And you say to the American people, we're going to give you the freedom to access that drug elsewhere. I think very quickly the pharmaceutical industry wouldn't be able to impose these price increases because then you would have competition. Freedom equals competition, in my judgment, here in this issue.
Could I ask the senator another question? We understand that you can buy lettuce from overseas, you can buy many other products from overseas, you can buy dairy products, you can buy almost any item except perhaps prescription drugs. And yet the Canadians, in particular, as well as the countries that are included in the senator's amendment, all adhere to the same standards or higher standards than the United States of America does. And now I understand that one of the senators, not you, has received a letter saying that this is still a problem. I don't get it. Maybe the senator from North Dakota can explain it a little better.
Well, Mr. President, I would say to the senator from Arizona, there is not a safety issue here. To the extent that there's any safety issue, it is that we intend to increase safety of both the domestic supply of prescription drugs and the reimported prescription drugs, because the fact is there is nothing at this point dealing with batch lots and pedigrees and tracing capability. That doesn't exist at this point. We will insist on it in this amendment. So for anybody to suggest that somehow we're going to end up with a prescription drug industry that is less safe, or I should say prescription drug products that are less safe, that's just not the facts. And as I indicated before the senator came to the floor, Europe has been doing this for 20 years in something called parallel trading. For 20 years they've done it. If you're in Germany, want to buy a prescription drug from Spain that's an approved drug, you can. If you're in Italy, want to buy from France, you can. They do it successfully. I don't believe anybody should tell us that we are not capable of doing what the Europeans have done for 20 years, and that is giving people the freedom to access those prescription drugs where they are sold at a better price.
Well, could I ask the senator another question? Isn't it true that a letter was written to one of our colleagues and from the administrator of the FDA, the organization that would basically make sure that any product that goes to American consumers along these lines, that would go through that bureaucracy, that said it would require significant amount of assets and resources. I've since been told there's 11,000 employees of that bureaucracy, and I wonder if he thinks about that argument. And again, was the senator from North Dakota informed about this position, which, by the way, is the same position as the previous administrations?
Well, Mr. President, the senator from Arizona is correct. There's a letter from the Food and Drug Administration. The fact is, we've seen this over the years, that they say, well, we don't have the resources, or it'll impose more risk. The fact is, this amendment provides the resources for them, because those that are going to register to be able to ship FDA-approved drugs into this country at a better price are going to have to pay a fee. I mean, the people that are selling will pay a fee, and those pharmacies and others in our country who will be receiving will also pay a fee. This actually funds...
Required no additional funding from the taxpayer.
No additional funding from the taxpayer at all. Those that decide that they're going to offer these lower-priced prescription drugs will be paying a fee for the purpose of being able to do that, but this is not a taxpayer-funded issue at all, and it will provide the additional resources and pay for those resources without asking the taxpayers to come up with the money.
Now, do these countries that are included in the Senator's amendment, do we have absolute assurance? Can we look at the American people and say those countries and the agreements we would have with them, that you could have products that are safe, that you could safely buy, and it would not pose any hazard to anyone's health?
Well, Mr. President, the countries that are involved in this amendment, and they are limited, are countries that have an identical chain of custody to our country. And so these are countries that are accessing the same drugs. I just mentioned, let me do it again, because I showed 2 bottles of medicine. They are empty, obviously, but both of these bottles contained Lipitor. Most of my colleagues know what Lipitor is. And this was made by an American company in Ireland and then shipped all over the world. This little bottle was shipped to the United States. This little bottle was shipped to Canada. Same bottle, one was blue, one was red in the label, but the same bottle, same pill, same company, inspected by the FDA. Now, what's the difference? The price. The American consumer is told, guess what you get to do? You get to pay almost triple. Why? And it's not just the American consumer. If I can just hold up a chart that shows 2 drugs, I think if I can find it, one is Nexium, and this is advertised substantially, but Nexium's an example, and I also have one on Lipitor. Here's the price for Nexium. You think the pharmaceutical industry is selling Nexium at $37 for the equivalent quantity in Germany and losing money? I don't think they're losing money at that. But instead of $37, they charge the American consumer $424. My point is, my beef with the industry is their pricing policy.
But I'd ask my friendly question, wouldn't the pharmaceutical companies say, well, it's cost $424 because we have to absorb the cost of all the research that went into developing Nexium?
Yeah, well, I would say this. It's interesting. That is also always raised to say, well, if you don't allow us to charge the American consumer the highest prices in the world, we don't get to do the research and development that produces the next new miracle drug. Well, you know what? Most of the recent studies have shown that the pharmaceutical industry spends more money on promotion, marketing, and advertising than they do on research. I want them to do research, but there's one other piece. The Congress gave, without my support, a proposal that said those American companies that have money overseas should bring it back. We'll let them pay a lower tax rate. Guess which industry was one of the largest industries to repatriate profits from abroad? The pharmaceutical industry. Now, if they're making big profits abroad and charging lower prices to those consumers abroad, why can't the American people have access to those prices? It's not because they're going to lose money, because they made a lot of money abroad. That's why they repatriated much of it at a lower income tax rate.
Could I ask the senator do the